Well, what can I say about the Xbox One's operating system? I guess the best way I can describe it is it's pretty obvious, just screwing around with the operating system for a couple of days, that it's clear this operating system was originally developed around Microsoft's original strategy for the system. And while I'm glad they've changed that strategy, this operating system is still mostly based around those principles, in that it doesn't have any distinction between a downloaded game or a disk-based game. With the exception of, if you're using a disk-based game, it will give a disk check before the game starts. It's designed basically so you could switch between games on the fly. You could switch apps on the fly. You could run multiple apps at the same time. You could run different streams of videos, like television, or NFL, or ESPN, or Crackle, or something. And those apps are available at launch. Once you've got the operating system installed after the initial setup is completed, I immediately assumed, wow, they would probably have all the programs that I need, at least to get the system up and running. Let's start downloading games. And the first thing I did was download LocoCycle for the Xbox One, which is about a 13 gigabyte game. Now, I was thinking that the Xbox One, if I already did all that initial setup, it would have some of the most basic apps for the system, like the ability to play Blu-ray discs, or Skype, because that was a big touted feature of the system when they announced it, especially with the 1080p capable Kinect. Or audio CD playback, or the NFL program, or the ESPN program, those sort of things. Well, the only app that I actually saw that was installed on the Xbox One automatically, not including the basic system features like the achievement feature or the avatar feature, that sort of thing, was Internet Explorer. Nothing else was installed on my Xbox One when I first turned it on. And the problem that I had was that the Xbox One, at least the launch 1.0 version of it, doesn't make any priority between what it downloads. It downloads everything in the order of which you tell it to. So if the first thing that you're downloading, or you tell it to download, is a game, it's going to download that game, and by God, it's not going to do anything else. It's not going to download another thing, and it's not going to let you. I tried everything I could to change the download priorities until that download is finished, and then it'll move to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, exactly in the order which you told it to download. So take my advice from someone who's experienced, who has this. Learn from my mistake. Download all the apps first, just to get the system, all the system features that you want in there. That includes programs like Skype, NFL, ESPN. Blu-ray disc feature has to be downloaded as a separate app, as well as audio CD playback has to be downloaded as a separate app. They're all free. I think some of them may require an Xbox Live Gold. In particular, I think ESPN and possibly Skype may require Xbox Live Gold in order to use them. But other than that, they are free to download. They're only, I would say that each one of them is probably somewhere ranging between about 10 to 50 megabytes apiece. At most, maybe 90 megabytes. So they're all at least under 100 megabytes apiece. They don't take that long to download. But if you're like me and you're immediately starting to download games as soon as the Xbox One is loaded, is turned on, is ready to go, you're going to have to wait for those games to download before you can get the apps features. And if you're, again, like me, there's really nothing else to do on the system short of, I don't know, play around with your avatar or something like that. The system doesn't differentiate in the downloads. There's no download priority options, at least in this version, the 1.0 version. It doesn't make any distinction between a download from a game, a download from an app, or a download from DLC content. It just doesn't. It downloads everything in the order of which it's placed. Now, once I got LocoCycle started to download, and this is what I thought a really cool feature, and I'm going to break this down specifically. I should consider this part of the game section, but I do consider this mostly part of the operating system section, so I'm going to include it here. I may talk about it again when I start talking about the system games, but I thought this was important to mention. Even though the games do have to download in the order of which you tell it to, and you can't change priority, I think the reason why is because you actually can play content while it's downloading. There are certain programs and certain games and certain apps that are usable while the download is still functioning, and that may be why Microsoft denied the chance to change priority. And that's a cool feature, I got to admit. Maybe that's what makes it worth it. LocoCycle was playable at about 26% playability. And the cool thing was that, well, what did I have based upon just that 26%? It downloaded the introduction as well as the first level. And for some odd reason, the system judged that it would have enough time, because it was downloading the first major level. The prologue level had already been downloaded, but it was still downloading that first section of the game after the prologue level when I hit the start button to start the game. It calculated that I would be able, it would take me so long to get through the introduction and the first prologue level. I believe actually in my footage, I actually have a Let's Play of LocoCycle on my website and my YouTube channel. You can check it out if you want. It took me about 17 minutes to get through both the introduction as well as the first level on a second or third playthrough. So given that factor, it factored that I would be playing for 17 minutes or so. By the time those 17 minutes were up, it would have the next level queued up. I never had a problem with it saying I don't have this level yet. Granted, I did stop and take a break every once in a while. I wasn't, you know, and did something else while the system was downloading, so I wasn't constantly playing. It took a while for 13 gigabytes to download, even on my high-speed network, and I've got a pretty good speed here, and this was on a time when nobody was really using the system. It was an early morning Friday, I think, if I remember correctly, when I started doing my downloads, and it still took quite a few hours for me to get all 13 gigs downloaded from Xbox's servers. That having been said, at least I was able to play LocoCycle while I was doing it, so that's a nice feature, and I really was appreciative of that. What I also wanted to do was, and this is again part of the operating system, the difference between downloaded content and disk-based content, there really isn't any. At least not the Xbox's distinction other than the disk check. What I actually wanted to do, everybody was making a big tout about game installing and things like that when the Xbox One first announced that it was going to require game installs, and I was, you know, saying to myself, the PCs have had game installs since the early 90s, and probably back, you know, the really early, you know, the early 90s. The PlayStation 3, in a lot of cases, required game installations. For Xbox 360, it was optional, but a lot of current Xbox 360 games, in particular Grand Theft Auto 5 and Battlefield 4, just off the top of my head, required some game installation in order for it to be playable. So for somebody to tell me, oh, don't buy this system, it's going to require game installations, that doesn't really faze me. That having been said, I wanted to actually record a installation so you guys could see it for yourselves. Unfortunately, the content was just kind of dry and boring to look at. It installed the game seamlessly when the disc was inserted and the game was selected. It prompted me, do you want to install the patch before I install the game content? And I think Dead Rising 3 at day one had about a 500 change megabyte patch. I don't know if it downloaded the patch during the installation, before the. It's all seamless. Basically, the way it works is that it installs the content from the disk. It's treated exactly the same, at least in the Xbox One operating system, as you would if you were to download the game content from Xbox Live. You get a little progress bar, just as you would for a download. It's treated the same. It's patched during the installation if there's a day one patch or something. Take my advice. If you've got a DLC code or something like that, install that first. Run the DLC code first. And I'm going to talk more about DLC codes later on. But definitely get that loaded first. Although it probably wouldn't hurt to get it done second. It's just it would take less time to download the DLC content before it would take to install or download a full game. So, setup. And the other reason is because that the game is still playable during the installation process as well. Just like with Lococycle took 26%, I don't know how long it took during the installation for Dead Rising 3 to be playable. I may have actually finished my installation before the game was finished. I finished my installation before I started playing it. I was playing other games because by that point I already had content loaded on my Xbox One. So what you could do by that point is just play other games or watch other content like NFL content, ESPN content, Crackle content, or content from your cable provider while the install is going on in the background. It sucks if that, that's when you got nothing else on your console, but once you've got stuff on your console, and this is my comment, all Microsoft has to do is preload some stuff on the Xbox One. I know it's got Internet Explorer on there, preload. So they got to put some stuff on there. Is my point. Load in a few, a few apps at least, or include some of the apps with the firmware update. Sure, it would make your firmware update bigger, but not by much. These apps are like 10 to 50 megabytes a piece. Even if you just had like one or two, it wouldn't cause, it would make a lot of goodwill. But I guess Microsoft decided, okay, we'll only put what you want on the system. You pick and choose every single function that you want your Xbox to have. If you don't want Netflix, you don't have to install Netflix. If you don't want Amazon, or if you don't want Xbox Video or Xbox Music or Skype, you don't have to put any of that. Ironically enough, Internet Explorer is on there, so there might be a little bit of a circular thing going on with Windows as well. It's like, well, what was the EU problem that they were having over there with Internet Explorer being loaded onto copies of Windows? So you can't get around that, but okay. I totally understand where they're coming from, but take my advice. I made the wrong decision. I started downloading games immediately. Sure, I could play those games sooner, but I should have downloaded the apps first. And if you're going to get yourself an Xbox One, trust me, download some apps before you start downloading and installing your games. Because you'll at least have some stuff to play around with before the download starts. So just keep that in mind. Another thing that I actually liked was I did get a chance to screw around with the Kinect's QR scanner. I know that Wired was talking about this not too long ago, where I actually saw it in the review, and I agree with it. I thought it was kind of cool. Inserting a 25 character installation key for every bit of DLC that I purchase or prepaid content that I get at retail is a bit of an annoying hassle, especially given the fact that we don't have a mouse and keyboard. If we had a keyboard, that's one thing. That would be a lot easier. In fact, I remember actually buying a 360 chat pad just because of the Xbox 360. It just made it so much more convenient to input 25 character prepaid codes into my Xbox 360 with a chat pad as opposed to using the analog sticks to input characters. Now, as far as I know, there's no chat pad for the Xbox One controller just yet. However, you're not going to need it because all you have to do is, along with the 25 character key on your leaflet that has your DLC content, it includes a QR code. All you have to do is just say Kinect scan code or Xbox Kinect scan code, something like that, or just manually select the code scanner in the Xbox Store. It's part of the Xbox Store options. And hold the prepaid card in front of your Kinect. It automatically and seamlessly will, tell you, hi, this is for this content. Please confirm that. Confirm it, it starts downloading in the background, or it queues up the download for the content. So it's great. You know, that actually saves me the time to input the code. I really appreciate it they added that QR scanner system. From what I've been told from certain reviews, it doesn't work reading QR codes off of screens like smartphones. You'll have to have it on a physical printed card. This might be a security feature or something to prevent people from, you know, taking QR codes and holding them up on their smartphones that they've downloaded off the web or something like that. It may, or it just may be the fact that the Kinect is incompatible with, the Kinect scanner is incompatible with smartphone screens. I don't know. I don't know what the total problem with it is, but it does work just fine off the provided cards. And as far as I'm concerned, if that's what they're printed on, if it works on what it's supposed to work on, the fact that it doesn't work on something that it's not supposed to work with, it doesn't really bother me, basically. So, great innovation on there, Microsoft. Props, thumbs up on that one. I appreciate it. And so do my thumbs. So, great feature there. Once again, I would recommend if you have downloaded content, redeem that first, then redeem the game. A little bit of a ballpark figure for those of you who may be interested in. I would still say, because of you know, your web speeds and things like that, I would still recommend, if there are games that are on the Xbox One which are download only, and there are, and there will be more later on. Spartan Assault is coming next month. Download just the downloaded games and go to retail and buy retail games. There's really no difference other than just the disc check. I have not seen any difference in the games, in the way the games are set up, or how the operating system treats them, whether they be disc or downloaded. And it is faster to get these games downloaded off disc than it is to download them through the web. It just, the Blu-ray player is faster than your network connection is going to be. I mean, unless you're sitting on some huge, I don't know, much faster read speed or some, you know, a transfer speed than I couldn't fathom, you probably have a better time just installing the game off the disc.